this thing looked inherently strong. You have this nice looking double bottom off this long-term uptrend line. What you're about to see is a video snippet from inside the boiler room. Every single morning before the open of the US stock markets, I analyze dozens of stocks and then decide on the trades that we're going to look at for that day with dozens of traders. We all get together, execute trades, chat some, and make some money together on a Zoom conference call. Go to thepatterntrader.com/club to find out more. We're looking at both the S&P on the top chart and the NASDAQ in the form of the triple Qs on the bottom chart. And you can see how, technically these markets adhere to certain patterns. So when it's in a range or a trending, you can see how if you had just, stayed within this range for a year and a half, you would have done very well pivoting off the support and resistance. And I should actually keep that line back up because now you can see we started to go the other way. So we have this kind of V-shaped top because it looks like a roof, but to me that is a top. But you can see that we're just in this little collection area here, and and this is what I was saying in the first notice of the the new year, was that everybody seems to be bearish. Everybody understands the S&P is going down. Leon Cooperman, huge money manager, last week said, there's nowhere for stocks to go but lower. And everybody's looking for stocks to go lower. So that makes me really nervous. It sets up an opportunity where people are caught off sides. And that's exactly what happened last Friday. We had an employment report, and then it showed that wages, are lagging, which was a net positive for the market, whatever. And then the market had this huge short covering rally. And I was saying last week that it's very dangerous to get short here. Even though I do think the market is going down, there are certain times and places where, you don't want to get short in the hole, right at the bottom of a trend. The market's like an elastic band. And, what I try and do is, if I'm looking to get short, I'm looking for rallies. I'm looking for the elastic band to get pulled back so that we can go again. And I do think looks like what's going to happen probably this week and maybe into next week, is that I think we're going to get a bit of a bounce. It feels like the selling is somewhat exhausted. We've got kind of little weekly reversals here. And it looks like the S&P wants to pivot back up to this 4,100 area and retouch this thing. There's actually an area right here on the chart that I've been looking at. There's a small gap there around 4,200. And I always thought the market, wants to kind of get back there. So I do think that going into, this week, early part of this week, and maybe next, that this thing actually can rally. So we hear about recession, we hear about all this negative stuff, but this is why you just got to look at the technicals. And I think that, we've got a risk, always look for areas of risk and reward where you get this little key reversal. So basically, you could get long here and put your stop loss, at this low. And so you've got a very small risk to then, test if this is going to bounce. So I do think we're in this area. It looks like we're starting off higher this morning. I would hope that the first half hour is always a misdirect. So I'm hoping that it opens higher at some point, sells off, and I would actually, buy a little bit into any kind of dip this week. We've got inflation numbers this week. We've got bank earnings stocks this week. And, we've got China. So a lot of news driven stuff. But, again, I would just look at these inflection points. You can see how well this market bounces off these trend lines. And again, I wouldn't be surprised to have a retest, maybe even take it out a little bit, get everybody off sides, and then I think we're going to go back down. So that's kind of where we are. On the S&P, NASDAQ is weaker. So, you've got Dow is the strongest, S&P is mid-level, And then the NASDAQ is the weakest, which kind of leaves room for maybe some kind of catch up. But again, we have this trend line. And, I would very much leave open the possibility that we, retouch this trend line, or the possibility. Now, the thing is, this is a bear market. So this is where it's so nerve-wracking being long, because, you just feel like that macro wave, could come back with gale forces in your face. So, you got to be extremely careful. This is a trading market. And whatever you do here, you got to set it up with the mentality. This is just a trade. This is maybe a week-long kind of phenomenon. And then, watch out. These gale forces could come right back in your face. So I think stocks like Tesla and Microsoft and stocks last week that were hammered, very good chance you're going to get, some kind of, short covering rally in here. So you can see this area around the 255, 260 in the Qs is, a support level. Now, the more time something touches it, eventually you're going to take that out. But, you can watch these things pivot off these same levels forever. So trading is about time and price. And so, it's very important to understand and observe what the big picture is, and then even in the smaller picture. So I will, look for these counter trend trades. They're very robust. These short covering things go very quickly. But we just have to realize that, notwithstanding how hard this thing rallies, even if it takes this out, it looks like it's breaking out, this is still likely going to be a rally in a bear market. So we kind of always have to, this is what it's been, all year. It's like walking and chewing gum, having these two thoughts in our mind that, at some point you want to play the rallies, but then they kick back in your face very, very quickly. So, just keep that in mind, whatever your strategy is and what have you. So I think that's where we are in the market. I think we've got, room for a pivot this week. And here again, you can see on a kind of a longer term thing, this pattern did its job. I mean, we see patterns, and, this is a nice follow through. But again, this is the interplay with the markets. This is still an uptrend. And still, until we start making lower lows. So, this is a market where we're making higher lows. So this is where you kind of get in here and you go, really, is this going to translate to something like this? And, we were having this whole discussion last year when Dragon brought it up, where I just thought that this thing looked inherently strong. You have this nice looking double bottom off this long-term uptrend line. And so, notwithstanding, sometimes we get these key reversals, but you can see there was no follow through. So you can't just trade these reversals in a vacuum. Look really nice here. You got a reversal here, here, here. And yeah, you could have played that for about 2 minutes. So, sometimes these reversals, they're just sucker plays. And so what I look to do is look at the trading action around the reversal. Does it follow through, or does it kind of stick around? And the more this thing kind of sticks around this 230 area, to me, it's just building energy to go back in, that direction. So I would, look at this thing and, I think that it could spend a couple of weeks here just consolidating. But this thing is going up. I would, any market dip or any market sell-off, I would buy this stock. It looks impervious to sell-offs. And again, I think that this is the play, if you're looking at the, EV space. Rather than buying Tesla here, I think Tesla could rally for the next week, go back to 125. But to me, this is the safer bet. Here he says, I've learned to always expect to look for a small retrace after breaking a trend line level and then enter there. And, that's certainly, again, I think this is going to be the area 230, and then we could just consolidate here. And the more work it does here, the more energy coil, then it's building for that. So again, into February and March, when we're likely to get a market sell-off, and this thing pulls back, just look for that opportunity. But, look, it's not straightforward because it could get somewhere above here. This pattern could, get kicked in, then it, could. So look, you take one step at a time, but this thing by just the short term, by ignoring the short term double top, it's not going to go lower. To me, it's going to go higher. So again, if all the EV plays, if that's the sector you're looking at, this is the play. Alex says, are your thoughts on Moderna still the same? So, here's the, I always look for the pattern, then wait for the opportunity. And the market usually does give you a look, but sometimes it can happen just very, very quickly. I mean, a week ago, I was short Lululemon and I hopped out, and today it's down $48 on some news of whatever it is, some forecast going forward. So right now, Lululemon's down here. And, I'm not long. I mean, I'm not short. I got short in here. I started fooling around with it. It started, kind of, and so I'm out. And so the problem is sometimes you see these patterns, and the pattern does equal a trajectory. Now, I'm saying this for a certain reason. There was a pattern here, and then there was a funky kind of head and shoulders here, but it looked like it was kind of ignoring it. And, it's hard to tell what was going on in here. But to me, this chart looked like it was going to turn. And today we're down $50. So, sometimes, I prefer to wait for, certain reversals and certain formations that give you a firm footing of when something's ready to go. But then sometimes the patterns just trigger, and then you're caught offside and you're not in it. So this is Lululemon. This is, admittedly a pretty somewhat complicated chart. We do see the, so when you see the main governing pattern, eventually prices, yield to that pattern. But, this is the problem with eventually. We have these kind of, glass shards that we've got to incur. So now, we're down here. So this pattern and all the implications, are starting to yield now. But, it took a long time. And, this is just, again, I always look for a way to, when the market goes up and it starts telling you, okay, now it's right. But sometimes the market doesn't tell you. It just, goes according to whatever the pattern is. And then we're caught off sides, and all of a sudden we're not in it. Hey, if you would like to trade alongside me every day and join our most prestigious program, then head over to thepatterntrader.com/club for more information.